I want to talk to you today about the risks of separation in the state of Texas if you are married. Texas does not recognize separation as a legal status. There's no such thing in the state of Texas as being legally separated. So if you are married, you remain married until one of you passes away or until you get a divorce. You can't just separate and treat that yourself as though you're divorced. From a legal standpoint, that just doesn't count. So I'm not talking about encouraging somebody to get a divorce. Divorces don't solve all your problems. Divorces aren't the greatest thing in the world. If you can save your marriage, you should save your marriage. What I'm doing today is letting people know that there are risks of being separated. If you're not going to be in a real marriage, then there are severe risks to being separated in the state of Texas. There is such a thing as a separation agreement. It's a form of a postmarital agreement, but those can have risks. So if you use a separation agreement thinking that that will solve all of your problems, you are creating risks for yourself and also for your heirs. So let's talk today about the risks of being separated instead of going ahead and getting a divorce in the state of Texas. The first of those is what's called presumed fatherhood. If a woman is married and has a child, even if she hasn't seen her husband for 20 years, the husband is the presumed father of that child. So what that does is it creates some new legal entanglements. It creates things that the mom may have to do, and it creates problems potentially for that presumed father. So if you remain married, even if you are not living with your wife, if she ends up pregnant and ends up giving birth, you, the husband, the legal husband, are the presumed father of that child. The second risk has to do with spousal maintenance. In Texas, we don't have court-ordered alimony by that name, but we do have something called court-ordered spousal maintenance. And it's basically what alimony is in other states. There are different requirements than other states. There are different goals than there are in other states. But from the standpoint of one person paying the other, that's what it is, in the same way that alimony is. So it's money paid after a divorce that's ordered by the court. And spousal maintenance in Texas is governed by a set of rules that talks about the maximum amount that can be ordered, and those maximum amounts have to do with how long the marriage exists, not how long the parties live together, how long the marriage exists. So the longer you remain married, even if you are separated, the higher the higher tier you move into from a spousal maintenance standpoint. So it can cause you significant financial damage. And if you're thinking, well, that's only for the husband, that's not true at all. Women can be ordered to pay spousal maintenance. And given the fact that you don't know what the future is going to bring, you may think, well, I'm the female in this marriage and my husband makes a lot more money than me, so that's not a risk to me. Well, you have no idea what's going to happen to your husband in the future. If your husband were to get a horrible illness or be incapacitated, you may then be obligated to pay spousal maintenance to him, even though you think you shouldn't. And the fact that you've remained married for a long time will influence the amount. Next is probably one of the most obvious, and that is the community property rules in the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, said simply, once you are married, until the marriage ends, either by death or divorce, all the property that is accumulated is presumed to be community property. You can end up losing half of your retirement account because you never got around to divorcing the other person. You can end up losing half of property that you bought. You are causing significant risks for yourself in terms of community property accumulation by remaining married. The next is something that may not apply to many people, but it will apply to some, and that is you can't get remarried while you're married. The law says you can only be married to one person at a time. So if you are married, because there's no such thing as common law divorce, if you are married to one person, you cannot get married to another person while that first marriage is intact. And it's intact until one of you passes away or until a divorce happens. Finally is sort of the flip side of the community property situation, and that is debt accumulation. There are certain things in the law that both spouses are liable for. Both spouses are not liable for everything in a marriage. Just because your spouse goes out and buys something, it doesn't make you automatically liable for it. But there are certain things, and some of those can be very expensive things, for which you are liable. The list of things for which spouses are liable is called necessaries. It sounds like the word necessities, but it's different. Necessaries are things that both spouses are liable for. So if your spouse, one that maybe you haven't seen in years, accumulates debt for necessaries, then you can be held liable for that. And what can those things be? Well, a prime example would be medical bills. In this day and age, it doesn't take much to run up tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills. And if your spouse runs those up and then your spouse doesn't have the money to pay for them, the medical providers can come to you for payment if you have remained married and have not gotten a divorce. The key takeaways are this: separation does not protect you. Passage of time harms you when you are separated. It doesn't solve the problem. It's not like a common law marriage. You can't have a common law divorce just by waiting it out. Once you are married, you have to get a divorce if you're going to end that marriage and if you're going to end all of these risks that we've talked about today. Again, if you're in a marriage and it's bad, but you can save it, save your marriage. If you don't have to go through a divorce, don't go through a divorce. But if you're going to be separated, a divorce is the only way to protect yourself against these risks.